I'm talking with Dom Lenoir, director of photography, producer, and writer of Legend of the Beast, a cinematic biopic feature film based on the life of Aleister Crowley. Good morning, Dom. It's evening for you, I guess.
Yeah, good evening back in the UK, yeah.
Are you in London?
No, I'm in Portsmouth at the moment, but I work in London quite a lot.
Now, I understand that the Legend of the Beast will play at the London Independent Film Festival.
Yeah, that's on Thursday the 19th of April.
Great. Do you have any other screenings planned at this time?
Well, I think the main priority after this festival is just this is a kind of working copy that's ready for the festival, so it's just to absolutely finish production and get it ready for DVD. And then once it gets to the US, over to the distributor, they'll do a whole bunch of festivals at their end submitting it. So this is just kind of something at my end, really.
So how did you originally hear about Crowley, and why were you inspired to make a film on his life?
Well, what actually happened is my previous film, which was kind of a fantasy thriller which had kind of magic and mythical themes in it, that got picked up for distribution. The distributor was very into the kind of the way it was done and the style of it, and his kind of idol is Aleister Crowley, and he wanted someone to do it who would kind of do it in a serious way and not kind of over-exaggerate it too much and kind of cover the topics that he wanted doing. So he basically asked me to do the project, and it kind of developed from there. And once I actually started looking into Aleister Crowley before I actually took on the project, I realised a lot of what he was saying is stuff that I kind of agree with myself. So I took up the project based on kind of reading about him, basically.
Right, so there was some intention around trying to show Crowley in a way that actually kind of vaguely resembled his actual life.
Yeah, well, basically the way I went about researching it was to read various texts about him, try and get as many kind of different opinions, and kind of focus on basically his life. All the different aspects, such as the climbing, the chess, philosophy, the magic, and quite importantly is to try and dispel a lot of the rumours that surround him that obviously weren't true. A lot of it was just kind of propaganda, and so basically just try and kind of represent a fair image of him.
Any thoughts as to why there haven't been any biographical films that have really treated him up to this point?
Well, I think people see him as this kind of dramatic character, and they instantly want to go over the top and pick up on all the kind of things that will attract attention, such as the black magic and the kind of the more dramatic sides of the rumours about what his kind of practices were.
Right.
And they get far too drawn in on that rather than what kind of interested me primarily, which was his kind of philosophy and his kind of outlook on life, and the fact that he was a kind of a flawed but great man, basically.
So you kind of found out about his philosophy when you started the project, or did you already kind of know a little bit about it and you learned as you were progressing with your research?
Well, yeah, I already knew a few of his kind of ideas, because I have a friend who's very, very into him. But more what I found out is that as I researched him, that he kind of, a lot of his ideas were things that I kind of already agreed with or would like to see implemented. And that's kind of why it appealed to me so much, and I really tried to get that across in the story. That's kind of one of the main elements, is his kind of outlook on this kind of automatic society that just keeps plundering on and not really going anywhere, because everyone kind of assumes that you should, and just try and do something different, basically.
Yeah, and so as you mentioned, he was a flawed but a great man. Anything more you wanted to say about what your kind of overall perspective of him as a person is?
Well, I think he was much more interested in his magic and his kind of his academia and learning than he was necessarily at thinking always about other people. What I got is that he burned a lot of bridges because he was kind of so intent in his kind of quest and his ideas, that sometimes, probably a lot of the time he was actually right, and he was correct for telling people off, but I think a lot of the time he was also just disagreeing with people because he thought he knew best.
So what can you tell me about the creative process behind the movie? It seems like you had a lot to do with the creative aspects of this. How did that all come together?
Well, it was actually just a case of kind of looking at all the events of his life, and kind of choosing the bits that kind of interested me or I thought were most needed for his character. I didn't really concentrate that much on the kind of the dark magic side of things. Concentrated much more on kind of his reading and his views. So it was literally a case of kind of going from his roots as a child and his upbringing and kind of his first delving into magic and how that progressed up to the stage where he went climbing, travelling, what he kind of learned from different worlds, the different people along the way that he learned different insights from, and just kind of did it from start to end of his life, basically just kind of trying to categorize the different experiences from a kind of timeline that seemed most relevant to me.
Yeah, it seems from the trailers that I've seen that the other people in his life and his interactions with them maybe plays a big part in the movie as well.
Yeah, well, essentially there's no main characters in the film. It kind of, each character is there to kind of represent a point or a perspective of his life, whether it's kind of Alan Bennett and his views kind of on meditation and Buddhism and that kind of progression and what influence that had him, or his experiences in Egypt and how that kind of affected his magical views, his disagreements with Mathers and some of the other sects, and eventually his creating of his own magical societies and the sex magic, and a whole bunch of things really, but just trying to cover each thing to cover a different point really.
As far as the filming process, how long has that been going on?
I think we started pre-production in May last year. The actual production started in kind of July and went up to the end of the year, and kind of post-production was starting in kind of late October up until now, and they're kind of finishing the film really, just kind of sorting out final touches really at the moment.
Did you go to a lot of different places, or was it all filmed mainly in one location or area?
No, it was filmed in quite a few places. A few of the sets were actually kind of made sets, like we couldn't go to Egypt, for instance.
Right.
So that was kind of a set. But we tried to kind of we filmed in a kind of crypt to represent his initiation into the Golden Dawn, to try to get that kind of feel. Went to Sicily to actually visit his abbey in Cefalù, much against the kind of protest of the locals and the guard dogs, etc. But Sicily was actually a great location because it kind of represented a lot of the travelling scene represents a lot of his kind of travels around the world and some of his climbing. So we did a lot of that out there. So obviously he did a lot in kind of Europe and Asia. So that was quite instrumental in that side of the film, but a lot of the other stuff's been shot in London, basically, and a few wooded areas such as the New Forest, Hampshire.
Interesting. So when you went to Cefalù, did you have any confrontations with the locals, or what happened there? Well,
it was just a kind of uneasy avoidance of really commenting on where it was. Eventually we kind of got some people to tell us where it was, but the actual location, there was a police car kind of parked outside, luckily no policemen. Other than that, we had to go over the fence basically and kind of go past rubble to actually get to the alley, and there was just attack dogs, well, I'm sorry, not attack dogs, guard dogs on either side, like barking quite manically.
So in a production like this, often there are a lot of people involved that are maybe behind the scenes or you don't see so much. How many people would you say are involved in this production?
Not a great deal.
Yeah.
Quite a few kind of extras for small roles, but essentially probably a kind of a main crew of myself and one other guy at the actual filming process, and kind of 2 or 3 people for post-production. We've got a composer and someone working on the visuals and someone else working on the visuals. So generally about kind of 5 people total for the whole thing. And you have professional movie-making experience prior to this. You mentioned another film. What was the name of that one? That was Nightscape.
Nightscape.
It It's a film I did for my master's, but it got picked up for distribution. I made that with a university colleague at the time, and it's kind of a Lord of the Rings style fantasy thriller.
Oh, okay.
Set right across England with ancient gods and magic, etc.
I see. The trailers look great. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Do you know when it might be available in the United States?
What, for a DVD release?
Yeah.
I couldn't really comment on that with them because it all depends on the distributor.
Yeah.
I imagine they'll be getting a copy within the next couple of months. Mm-hmm. So fingers crossed, maybe a late 2012 release or early 2013, but hopefully we'll try and get it pushed out as quickly as possible and possibly on cable as well. So
great. If you were to pick a favorite part of the movie, what might that be?
I think a lot of it is his discussions with Sybil, just his kind of Sybil Leek, who's in the film, just kind of his basically just experimenting and showing off his kind of philosophical views and discussing them with people, and it kind of covers his delving into the media as well and some of the problems he had with deliberately or unintentionally misleading people and the backlash he received. So I think any kind of scene in the film that served that purpose was quite good, but I think other than that, Alan Bennett's scenes I really like because of the kind of, it shows more of a positive view that he wasn't just a Satanist basically. It shows him in a different light to what people are used to experiencing. I think in general that I might have kind of edged slightly on the gooder side of what Crowley's overall character might be in overall film terms, but make a change from the usual. Yeah, that's a big change from what I think a lot of people are used to, because as you say, that the standard seems to be the over-sensationalizing expose documentary films that really tend to bring forward a lot of falsehoods about Aleister Crowley. So, So what were some of the biggest, I mean, you mentioned black magic, but maybe what were some of the biggest kind of myths that you wanted to overturn with this? Well, I think a sacrifice, I mentioned it at one point in the script, just about human sacrifice. I don't personally believe that he ever did that. I know there was the incident with a couple of cats, but I think that's one of the main kind of myths, that he kind of murders lots of people, and that's what I've heard anyway, and I don't think it's exaggerated and over the top. Great. Well, so you mentioned before we started the interview, we were just talking, and you mentioned that you have also a documentary that you're making? Yes, yeah. I'm also doing a documentary on him, which is kind of more about a kind of presenter finding out about Crowley for herself for the first time, not having heard very much. So it's kind of a research and investigative journey. And that's more of a kind of objective look, more kind of looking at a variety of kind of different people actually and what their opinions of Crowley are like. So it's probably a bit more from both sides about what they think he is and the truth behind him, essentially. Well, that sounds interesting. Is that something that you have plans for? Is it going to be like a film that will be shown in theaters or a DVD release, or is it going to go out on TV? Or it should be the same as the feature film. As in a kind of, it'll be a feature-length documentary, essentially. I see. And probably will come out around the same kind of time, possibly a month or two later. I see. I think one of the things, another issue in the film, which I kind of touched on quite heavily, was his kind of media outlook. So I covered quite a lot about his. It covers a scene where he was trying to sue Nina Hamnet for the Bible and how that went wrong. It kind of, essentially, that's another kind of go at the kind of strict Victorian society, Edwardian even society that he was kind of facing, and just really had a dig at the news and the reporting kind of world and how they can often just twist stories and falsify information and make everything just completely blown out of proportion. So that's quite a big theme actually in the film. The lawyer scene with Nina Hamnet. Oh yeah. But he mentions with in another scene with Civil League the same kind of issues with reporters, and it's kind of he meets with a reporter later on who's actually a fictional character, but it's just kind of to represent that they're kind of questioning a bunch of his life, and kind of at one point the reporter throws a question about him living in squalor at one point, which was a misconception about his near to his death.
Right.
So it just kind of, in a more general sense throughout the film, is a theme rather than actually specific episodes, basically.
Yeah, there's that rumor still persists that he sort of died living in squalor, but actually he lived in a big house at the top of a hill overlooking the cliffs that he climbed as a boy.
Yeah, Hastings.
Right, living with other intellectuals, playing chess with them, and so forth. And for some reason, this idea that he died living in squalor has spread, but it's just not true. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dom.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, you too, and best wishes on the release of the film.